All right, peace and blessings, everybody. February 27th, Tuesday. I've asked David Hinkson to write up a brief history of his case. There's a 374-page book that his father wrote up, but, who's going to take the time to read a 374-page book? I think it's probably a very good book. I do plan on reading it myself, but when you're trying to educate people on social media or send a letter to an editor or send a letter to a talk show radio host, a 3-page letter can do a lot better than a 374-page book sometimes. So David wrote up a 3-page write-up about his life and his case, and this is posted on Year of Jubilee. So not only do you have the book posted on Year of Jubilee, but you've also got the 3-page letter, and I'm going to read it too. So if you don't want to hear me read it, just go download it from Year of Jubilee. Click on the Hinkson page, and you can download the PDF file. Otherwise, I'm going to read it right now. Written on February 27th, a brief write-up about me and my case by David Rowland Hinkson. In 1998, I first attempted to make some health food supplement products for the sole purpose of paying for airtime while doing a talk show, as it was costing me $10,000 per month to be on WWCR, Worldwide Christian Radio Network. I interviewed a lot of interesting people live on air, who all expressed truth about many things, including government corruption, and this probably made some enemies. But these health supplements ended up taking a life of their own, as I really found a new low-cost treatment to remove all viruses and parasites, non-toxic copper drink, using mineral that is normally toxic if made wrong. In the past, I joined the U.S. Navy when I was 17 years old, as was guaranteed a specific job rating, as I scored 99% in an aptitude for electronics and mechanics. I studied a lot of chemistry over the years, became a licensed real estate broker, insurance broker, but I had no formal training in medicine. So late in the game, I studied medicine right after I discovered that I had cancer in 1988. I was able to 100% make my cancer go away, and then I got a degree in naturopath, as I wanted to do some clinical studies overseas. I wanted to be able to work with or for the Doctors Without Borders as a volunteer, but I found out that the U.S. is not a friendly environment towards natural medicine. And I learned that most of the non-NATO countries were much more receptive to my new concepts and ideas. So I ended up in part working in Russia, South Africa, and Dominican Republic, over 10 different countries in all. I, in fact, spent so much time in Russia that I had an annual visa, $400, as I stayed there almost full-time in 2001 and 2002. I was never motivated by money or greed, as it was the concepts that I chased, just the concepts. Many times I was in complete disagreement even with other doctors in the field of naturopath, as I stated my opinion the way I see it. For example, I was the first doctor of naturopath to lecture against consuming calcium carbonate as a supplement. Tums and calcium pills are calcium supplements made from calcium carbonate, as all of these products, in my opinion, actually cause kidney stones, arthritis, and Alzheimer's, as this product is not used by the human body to harden bones. So I was very careful not to make medical claims in the U.S., and therefore my marketing approach here was done by handing out tens of thousands of free sample bottles and literature, and then collecting thousands of testimonials. And if someone wanted to buy some of these products, they could just order it from my secretaries at Wateroz. For example, I discovered that I could remove any virus and or parasites, malaria, river blindness, brain-eating amoeba, and AIDS in about 2 hours. I never charged a single dime to diagnose or treat any person anywhere, as I gave out free samples everywhere I went, even overseas. In the past, I never had a criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. Never cheated and or lied to anyone. In fact, I have only one problem, and that is I do not like asking anybody for money, so my secretaries would take care of that for me. So overall, this made it very difficult for the federal investigators to find anything negative to say about me. But they tried and tried for many years. So they started out just accusing me of hateful things that were unsubstantiated. For instance, they conducted many Star Chamber grand juries against me as they accused me of being head of 2 militias. I have never been to a single meeting, have followers who will kill for me, just customers who I helped. I think that I'm God, as I was really helping people, that I live in a compound, it was really a 340-acre farm, that I murdered Art Bell. Note that Art Bell is my friend and he is not dead. It would seem that there was no end to what they can accuse someone of once they got started. Even after being political prisoner for 10 full years, they again attacked me, as they came into the Atwater prison and tried to get 20 different inmates to say that I hired them all to be my hitmen. And again, no one would cooperate to lie against me. They, in fact, contacted any prisoner who had ever taken a picture with me, and even any person who had lived in a cell with me. Then they traveled to the late Bob Sandberg's home to meet with Bob, and then they traveled all the way to Ouray, Colorado to meet with my father Roland. It didn't matter that everyone told them that they were stupid and crazy, as they kept attempting to get someone new to lie against me. So now a person who has never spoken a single word against anyone, who has been accused of endless amounts of murder for hire, 160. The theory of their case is that everywhere I go and every meeting I ever had was just was just this subject of murder, as it only took me 5 minutes to start trying to hire someone. I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's just, our government is so bad. It only took me it only took me 5 minutes to start trying to hire someone to go out and murder someone. See James Harding's testimony. The CIA has molars that can be put into your mouth that can record what is said, but they could never get a recording or even phone call of me saying anything negative about anyone, let alone trying to have someone killed. It is my understanding that I have a personality that helps and cares for others, as that is what I have spent my life doing. Now they say that I'm delusional, but I never in the past have been accused of any of this when they were all standing around being jealous of my success. The federal agents who have attacked me, it seemed, all wanted to steal my success and cash flow for themselves, as they said I was not deserving of any of it. At the trial, I overheard one USA saying, "Why is he so successful? Who does he think he is? He is a friend of Roger Hunt, federal judge in Las Vegas?" In fact, they came to grab me at my home. I saw an appraisal of my properties that were never owned by me, that they thought I owned on the dashboard of Agent Long's vehicle, FBI agent. I knew that the FDA was investigating me for over 5 years, as they even came by the factory to visit and inspect. One FDA agent had talked to my son Matthew and told him that he needed to put some labels on the ozone machine, so he sent my son labels, and these labels said that the machine made 1 gram of ozone per hour. This was done so they could say that the machine was a medical device. This was a setup. It would seem that then the FDA got to the IRS involved, and they brought in the FBI so that all of their buddies could get something. But all of these idiots could not do a real investigation in the real world, as it's always easier to just find liars. For example, when I was first arrested, I was told that my housekeeper, Marian Raff, and her brothers from Mexico had all been hired by me to be hitmen. The only thing I knew about them is that Marian had met her new husband on the mission on the Mormon church, and that all of these people were Mormons, and Agent Long never investigated them. While I sat in the Boise jail for 2 years, I never heard a word about any murder for hire except for rumors about Mariana Raff. Later, I was barred from mentioning Mariana's name during trial. On October the 20th, Roman was my interpreter, and I spoke all day at the Infectious Disease Symposium to over 200 doctors from all the Baltic states. I spoke about infectious diseases and my work using copper water. Roman really wanted to start manufacturing these products in Russia, and then he wanted to sell them in the Ukraine. When I finally came back from Russia, and with Roman at my side, Roman had gone over to drop off samples of all 20 of the Water Oz minerals to Swisher's Northwest Laboratory. While there, Swisher had told Roman how he had just died on the operating table 2 weeks before. Roman noted that the laboratory was in Joe's garage and it was very unprofessional. Roman then went back to Swisher's home about 3 days later and picked up these samples and that were going to test it in Russia, and we both flew to Minneapolis and then to New York as I had some speaking engagements and Roman wanted to see me in action. Excuse me. At this time, Roman flew back to Moscow and I flew back to Idaho. Then about 5 days later, on November the 12th, 2002, I got an email from Roman saying that all of these samples were filed with what looked like tap water. Roman accused Mr. Swisher of sabotaging his samples. See affidavit of Roman Ponomarenko. We ended up wasting over $1,000 for these tests. This is when I really concluded that Mr. Swisher was a federal rat. The first arrest was based on the accusation that my labels were more than 10% misquoted, as I knew that the Northwest Laboratory was owned by Mr. Swisher, liar rat. I knew again that Mr. Swisher was behind this. So can you imagine my surprise when Mr. Swisher called me up on November the 23rd saying that he had heard I had been raided? I then at this time accused Mr. Swisher of label testing fraud, and he assured me that he was innocent. Of course, he blamed my employee named Chris John Patriot, his real name was Carl Waterman, of being a confidential rat, and he further stated that Mr. Patriot had sent him the samples using UPS, as he had not traveled out of the Wateroz factory all that whole year, 2002, as he had no driver's license, was too sick to travel, and had been in the hospital for the last 5 months in a coma. So at this time I stated to Mr. Swisher that he would give me an affidavit that if he would give me an affidavit that would be very helpful. But I still thought Mr. Swisher was up to no good, so as I knew that it was really Swisher's laboratory that had done all the testing, and he seemed to me to be a liar. So getting this affidavit was good. So I never heard back from Joe for the whole month of December, and I stayed very busy fixing labels, and I even purchased an ICP intercoupled plasma machine to do my own testing in the future, as I knew that we did not trust Mr. Swisher or his laboratory to do any further testing. So on the 3rd of January 2003, my secretary Gary Gray said that I had a call on the phone from a Mr. Swisher. I took this call in my home, and Joe informed me that he had mailed me his affidavit. I thanked him for this. Then he said he had something to ask me, and he went on to say that if I would give him $500,000 in cash and 50% of my Wateroz business for making him my partner, he would not go to Boise and lie against me. He stated that he was going to say that I was selling and shipping sodium cyanide in my potassium bottles. I hung the phone up on him and told all my secretaries to no longer take any calls from him ever again, but I felt secure in the fact that I had his signed affidavit saying that he had tested the products and they were perfect, and I again had confirmation that this man was no good. Then about 2 weeks later, I took a call from Kellogg Testing Laboratory in Kellogg, Idaho, and at this time, they accused me of mailing them in the U.S. mail a 16-ounce bottle full of pure sodium cyanide, as the bottle in question had a Wateroz potassium label on it. I stated I did not send it, and I asked about the return address on the box, and I was told by them that it was the Northwest Laboratory in Cottonwood, Idaho, Mr. Swisher Laboratory. With the evidence, I can and have always been able to prove that Mr. Swisher was attempting to blackmail me on January 3rd, 2002. I was sitting in the jail in Boise, Idaho. I had a visit by my attorney, Wesley Hoyt. Mr. Hoyt handed me an indictment that stated that I had hired someone named J.S. to be a hitman on or about July of 2002. Hoyt then told me that J.S. was Joseph Swisher. I told him at that time that I knew Mr. Swisher was in a coma in the VA hospital the month of July, and that I was not in Idaho, and I had traveled all over the world during this period of time, and that I also had Joe's affidavit. I informed him that I knew all of this as my office manager, Gary Gray, had been checking on his progress in the hospital, as we need to have some of our products tested for the label compliance. Thereafter, 2 days later, the USA superseded the indictment and now added December and January as the times that I had committed these so-called crimes. I knew that it was provable that I could not have trusted Mr. Swisher after November the 22nd, as he was the person who was doing the actual testing for the FDA counts. Now Mr. Swisher testifies that we are best of friends in January, yet in this grand jury testimony he had stated that I would not take his calls after the 1st of January. So now, in all reality, we have the Kellogg testing laboratory test to prove that Mr. Swisher was in fact blackmailing me. If you read the grand jury and trial transcripts, you will note that Mr. Swisher has told so many different stories that all conflict, as he actually is a sociopathic liar. Dave Hinkson. You can also download this writing on Year of Jubilee website. Thank you for your time.